What is on top of the deck? What is on top of the deck? Oh, it's Lightning Helix! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Welcome to Hunt the Week.
Hello everyone and welcome into the show. Welcome on in each and every one of you graveyard creatures out there. I hope you all get unearthed in due time, and maybe, just maybe if you're lucky, you'll get to draw a card, right? That's a card I wish I had in my deck. I don't. But I'd take about 2 or 3 of those things. That thing's pretty good. Yes, welcome into the show. This is Hunt the Week. It is a weekly Magic the Gathering podcast about the Arena Sealed Gauntlet League. We are in Brothers War, and I am your host with the most, your Don John DeMarco, your Goku or go home. I am a one-time Rookie of the League. One time won a league, Chaos League 2. And one time, I made the Player of the Year Mega Draft. Those are my accolades. That's who I am. That's what I do. And I also like to play Magic in the League. So let's go over what happened in Week 2 of Brothers War. Well, I went 3-2 myself. And I understand if you're like, John, why do you always talk about yourself in this podcast? It's not about you. It's boring. I hate it. I hate hearing about you. I am the everyman, okay? That's the point of this segment. I am the everyman, and you can judge your week against mine, whether it was good, whether it was bad. I've had my 0-5, I've had my 5-0, right? So you can sit there and go, well, I did as good as the podcast guy, or I'm not doing as good as that podcast guy. Maybe I got to pick it up a bit. But anyway, 3-2 this week. One of those losses I feel like maybe coulda, shoulda been a win, but it didn't roll that way in the cards. But I like my deck. I know I said that last time and I went 0-5, but I like my deck. It's black-red. It's power stones, it's kill spells, it's big 7 and 8 drop artifacts, and I think that's what you want to be doing here. And you want to be ready to kill those artifacts. But we're talking strategy too early. You know what it is. Let's go ahead and take a look at a prototype.
There he goes. One of God's own prototypes. A high-powered mutant of some kind never even considered for mass production. Too weird to live, and too rare to die.
That's right. We are talking Brothers War strategy. Before we can talk strategy, let's take a look at our top 8, huh? Top 8, Steve T. Strout, 9-1. Sean SP. Talrand, 9-1. Are they new? They might be new. Low OMW, Sean SP. But hey, way to go. Kyle W. Ether Engineer, 8-2. John R. Ged, 8-2. Christopher S. Stems, 7-1. Zeke W. Smarmy Platypus, 7-3. Caleb G. Why not 7-3, and Walter H 7-3. I think we got at least. I think we have 3 new players, or at least newish names I don't recognize. Maybe people in the top 8, a couple more in the top 16. So cool. I love it. I love it when the new players come in and just kind of beat us down a little bit. You know, we all get so entrenched in these Damians and Chris Yorks, you know, of the world. It's time for Sean SP. Man, if I find out Sean SP has been in this thing for like 3 years, I'm going to feel real stupid. Sean SP coming in, 9-1. Great record, man. Get up that OMW, but you are doing great. Everyone else, pick it up, right? We all got to do better if we're not in that top 8, because that's where we want to be. That's where we are trying to be. I'm sitting there at 17 right now, and I hope that number goes up next week. I hope it goes up. But really, I learned this from Emmett when I talked to Emmett. And Emmett says, I just want to go 3-2 every week. And if I can do that, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. And that's what I'm doing, and I'm kind of adopting that play style to me. In fact, this is something I learned. This is something I learned from another game. I don't know if this applies to Magic, but I tell myself that it does. And it's the 50-30-20 rule. And I don't know if you've heard about this. I hadn't heard about it till maybe a month or 2 ago. But it's something like, okay, now for me to half-heartedly tell you something I barely listened to one time and pretend like it's a gospel to me. 50-30-20, okay? 20% of the Magic games you are going to play, you're just going to lose. Those games are going to be losses. You're going to get screwed on mana. You're going to get screwed on cards. The shuffler's broken. It's not going to be in your favor. 20% of games are automatic losses. Flip side, 30% of games, they're automatic wins. Those are games where your opponent gets screwed on colors. Maybe they have a bad keep. Shuffler's not in their favor. It's broken. It's been broken. For whatever reason, 30% of all Magic games you play on Arena, you will win. 20%, you will lose. 50%. Those are games that are up in the air. Those are games that are decided by how well you play and the decisions that you make along the way, right? So it's based on that. You should win, a little bit more than you lose based on just this 30-20 statistics. And then that 50%, that's where the money comes in, right? Those are the games you got to win. Or you got to at least try not to lose. Play to your outs. I'm saying in Brothers War, you want artifact removal, man. If I had a lot of artifact removal, I would just move to that color. I don't really have anything in white. I don't really have anything in green. At least not anything that trumps my removal that I have in black. But I think you really want artifact removal. I lost to Helm of the Host last week. I just can't deal with that card. I just couldn't deal with it. I can kill most creatures. I can maybe even deal with an enchantment. Non-artifact creature is a little tough. I got one out in my deck. It's a little tough for me. And we know the set is just full of artifacts. So I think you just got to be packing your artifact removal. Your go for the throats go down in value. But your shoot downs, I think they go way up. I think the exile on that's huge, especially for Unearth. And try to pack at least a little bit of graveyard hate, right? Because these Unearth cards, these cards that you can cast from your graveyard, these rares that let you unearth things for 1 black-red. I'm looking at you, Mishra. They're great. And you need to have a way to deal with these threats that can be recurred. Because reoccurring that strong threat is what's going to, break your back. And we all remember Dominaria, United League, Urberg's Repossession, that kind of thing. And we've got Emergency Weld in this set. So even if it's not an unearthed creature, it's still something that you should be trying to deal with and look at, because there are ways to get those things back. And we're going to get back on track this week as we unearth a couple things.
Looks like it's time for us to unearth a couple things.
That's right. This week I sat down with none other than Kyle W., Ether Engineer, number 3 in the standings right now. And I just had such an interesting conversation. They were so nice. And I really appreciate the way Kyle talks about Magic. I think he has a very interesting perspective. I also think he is a very strong player when I listen to the way he talks. Because he talks about things. I'm just like, man, you're so smart. You're so good. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about Kyle. Kyle's great. Kyle's wonderful. I sat down. I talked to Kyle W. Let's listen to that interview now. All right, everyone, join me as we unearth some things with none other than Kyle W. Kyle, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
Happy to have you. It's Ether Engineer for those out there, and he's always got a dog profile pic in one way or another. You've seen him around, and if you're watching the standings, you see his name up there, up at the top. It's been a great league for him so far, but I want to know, Kyle, before we get to Brothers War, when did you start playing Magic?
Well, I started playing in middle school, which was for me around Scourge, Legions, that block.
Cool.
Yeah, although we didn't open booster packs. I think the kids just brought stuff that their other siblings had to school, and those cards happened to be of the time. So I don't even know if it was actually the set that was out at the time. But I recall falling in love with green. Actually, was my first color, which does not describe me now. But we played we played all kinds of crazy stuff. Definitely not by the correct rules.
Sure.
In fact, the main one that I recall getting wrong is Llanowar Elves would tap and allow you to search your deck for a forest.
I've seen people do that,
yeah,
and it's such. I don't understand how you get there.
Yeah,
but it's like, what a great card.
Yeah, it's a remarkable rules mistake that seems to be very pervasive amongst a lot of players. So those cards were a lot better, and maybe that's why I was able to cast cards like Crozen Cloudscraper, which is 8 green for a 13/13, but it has morph, so you could play as a 3-mana 2/2.
Nice.
That was a good card back then.
What got you into limited? Have you always been a limited guy? Did you ever play any constructed, or were you just, limited's my thing? What's your Magic like? How'd you get there?
Yeah, so I took a large break after starting in Scourge in that time frame. Yeah, just kind of fell out of the game. wasn't really into it. Got back into the game in college with Theros, I think was the set that had come out at that point, and I ended up just going to a store to see what they were doing as far as Magic related events. And it was a pre-release sealed, that kind of stuff schedule going on. And so I just joined some of those events, started playing, and I thought it was pretty fun. And they said they did drafts every week. So I just kept going and going and going and doing
You're
more of
hooked.
those. Yeah. And I was hooked. Got really into draft with the best set of all time, Cons of Tarkir.
Oh, so good.
Best draft
So
format.
good.
And yeah, so just played a lot of that. Unfortunately, Fate Reforged and Dragons of Tarkir were not it as far as draft goes.
No.
So eventually ended up taking another break, but kind of got back into it, last couple of years. Just a lot of great sets coming out. So
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I miss block draft, man. I miss it. I know
Yeah.
it's weird, but it's like you draft cons, you love cons, and then you know what? 1 pack of cons, and then 2 pack of dragons, and then it's 1-1-1, and it's like it's just so fun, man. You get to like play with those cards for so much longer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I miss that stuff.
It was fun. I think it was a challenge from a design perspective for them because they tried to include sort of themes and ideas in the later packs, but they wouldn't sort of develop with the original sets. And so especially when the Return to Ravnica block, another one of my favorites, where they had Dragon's Maze as the third set, the small set, and it had all 10 guilds in it. So it had to support sort of drafting for that and Gatecrash and Return to Ravnica, which made it very tricky to sort of weave a bunch of themes into that set.
Notorious for being a pretty terrible set too, right? Dragon's Maze. You can buy boxes for like $60 for a long time, I remember.
Yeah. The best card was that elemental, that
the Voice of Resurgence.
Voice of Resurgence, yeah.
And then, like, the token ended up being like one of the most expensive cards you could open.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when you open packs for limited, you'd open like 4 Clue Stones, which for those that don't know were just mana rocks that were not very good, but they would be the bulk of the pack because they needed some kind of theme to tie all the guilds together and make it easier to draft.
Yeah, they had to fix for 5 colors in 1 pack, and it's a strange format. If you get a chance to play it, I don't know that you want to. Maybe do it in a chaos. Just throw in one of them in there just to take a look.
Yeah, it's an interesting format. I think it didn't quite get there as compared to some of the later sets like the Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Legions.
Yeah, they came back. And I will say those early Ravnica, regular Return to Ravnica was great. Like those ones, and it was just Dragon's Maze just didn't pull it all together. There's also a weird storyline of an actual race happening, right? Wasn't there a race through like Ravnica and Maze's End? Cool card, super fun deck to try to build. But like other than that, really weird storyline.
It's highlighted cards of things like Runner's Bane, which is an odd name for a Magic card, but was sort of a claustrophobia variant. So it was all kind of weird.
I think it's 3 sets based around a race. That's like 9 months of your Magic time. That's a long time. Now everything is like 1 set. Here we're here. Okay, 3 months later. Okay, we're somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, and right now we're in Brothers War. Right?
We are.
And you, my friend Kyle, have a fantastic deck. I got to play it in week 1. Extremely tough games. Your deck has gone on to be 8-2. I'd love to talk about how you think about Brothers War and how you're doing so well. What's going on? What's your strategy?
Well, that's right. So I'm 8-2 at the moment, and one of those 2 losses is, of course, to you, John. Who, if I can bring this up, I think of the players that I've played against multiple times. So not including players I played off once, in a league and haven't played again. I think my worst record has to be against you, John.
Oh no!
I believe I am 1-6 against you.
I'm your Ryan D. That's my record against Ryan D.
So I think I lost twice during the Eldraine League to your Oko and Archon, and twice to your Brawl deck with the red green guy.
The red green +7
Raga
Draga. Yeah.
And then I lost. We had the Amonkhet mirror in the last league.
Yeah, we did.
And then this one, and both the last 2 games it came down to like the very last turn where one of us could have, made the difference. So just had to get that out there that I think I've had some tough matches against you.
I promise I did not know that information coming in. As most people know, my memory is foggy and I don't keep track of a lot of things. But I did know that I played your deck last week, and your deck seemed phenomenally strong out of the gate for a week 1 deck. Things like Worm Coil Engine. I want to say the Behold, the big
Behold the Multiverse.
And I'm sure you've added some spice since then. What do you feel of the league? How do you feel it's going? And I mean, I'm sure you're enjoying it. You're winning. It's always hard to say bad things when you're doing well, but what do you think is working well for you besides just having powerful cards?
Yeah, well, I think that my deck might be overperforming a little bit. I think one of the key things that I'm seeing when playing against other players is sort of inability to deal with all these powerful rares. So a lot has been made about how, especially so the league mechanic you talked about with Caleb, where players have the opportunity to pick between multiple packs.
I
So
love
they
it.
have,
I
yeah,
love it.
it is a great mechanic, but it does kind of ratchet the power level up a little bit, where you might see a pack that has some dud rares, but now you get a choice between that and potentially one that has a more average or busted rare.
Yeah.
So I think the key is having kind of flexible and efficient answers to these cards, but also pairing them with enough assertive and kind of not necessarily aggressive, but kind of mid-range powerful cards that force your opponent to use their precious removal, excuse me, before you can get to, they can get to your bombs, basically.
Yeah.
So being able to kind of take control of the mid game with kind of mid-range cards that aren't going to win the game on their own, but if your opponent doesn't deal with, they're going to lose to those, then you can clear the way for those bombs. And so I think if you can construct that kind of game plan, you're in a much better place to answer these. So I think the big thing is just being a little more patient with the removal in this set. I think you really have to be able to kind of take your licks a little bit longer, so that when those Wormcoil Engines and those Flesh Gorgers and things come out, you do have that overwhelming remorse or that shoot down or whatever.
And you are reminding me of the last game I played that I lost, where I just like, I felt like I could have and maybe should have won the game, but I just didn't line my removal up right, and I made some dumb plays. And I also have seen plenty of times where I play my 6-drop artifact, right? And it's like you're saying, it's this mid-range thing. It's not super scary, but it is a threat. And they kill that, and then I drop my huge thing, and like they've used their spell, and like now it's over. So I think you're right. You really got to hold. You got to take care of these bombs, because there's so many bombs. There's so many bombs going around.
Yeah, so I think that's a key part, is being able to apply enough pressure that your opponent is forced to use those premium removal spells. And then conversely, to protect against your opponent's removal spells, packing some of the really powerful protection spells like Lauren's Escape and Gaia's Gift really allow you to protect, the most powerful cards that you have. Because I think as powerful as cards like Wormcoil Engine are, they don't necessarily end the game even if they get an attack in, if your opponent just, puts a static net on them, and then you're kind of out of luck. So
I got a question for you. Would you rather have protection spells or swift foot boots that could be blown up?
Well, I am perhaps notoriously against Swiftfoot Boots. I don't think that it's a very good card in limited. Perhaps it's a little bit better in this league, as noted, that because there's more bombs, you have more things to put it on, and having a threat that sticks can be better. But I think it's kind of the reverse problem, where it eats up a slot in your hand that prevents you from putting on that pressure in the early game, because it doesn't matter if your Obstinate Baloth has hexproof, right? Like if they just block it with a Gaia's Courser or whatever, it's not that big of a deal. So if you can play another Obstinate Baloth, obviously that's an uncommon, but if you can have another threat that really pushes the aggression there to open up the path for natural protection of your bombs by them not having those removal spells, I think you get a little bit more edge there.
Oh, I like it. I like the way this guy thinks. I gotta say, Kyle, I'm a big fan of the way just you think about Magic and talk about Magic. I've seen you kind of coach people in some of like the runs they do on the whenever people are doing the what do they call the arena thing where you pay the
arena
money?
Opens.
Yeah, I've seen you in a lot of the arena opens, and you always give great advice and tell people to play around things because of like priority and things that I'd never think about. And it's just like, I love the way you think and talk about Magic. I'm a big fan of it.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to hear that. Yeah, I think unfortunately to that point with the priority, arena gives a little bit away as far as it kind of leaks information that players have certain spells in their hand, because you can narrow down based on if they have an open land or 2 open lands, and naturally there's a list of cards.
Full Control to try and get in people's heads, or like
I have not. I think Full Control is some, if you're playing in the arena open, especially on day 2, you should probably play in Full Control. But I think it is a little bit too onerous to do and it makes me feel bad against opponents in League where it kind of prompts them to then go into full control.
Yeah.
And then both players are having a less enjoyable experience.
And 1 hour later, we'll get to game 3 of that match.
Yeah,
We've all
so
been.
I really, really wish Arena had a pro mode that just had the stops that were in MTGO, so I could, kick to end step, that stuff.
It'd be great. I wish I could pick my basic lands to be the same every time. We all want our own things.
Yeah, there's some things that we could improve on for Arena. So.
And fix the shuffler, please, Kyle. I've been asking this question more and more. I'm curious because I think it says a lot about your play style and how you kind of got into the game. What is your favorite Magic card?
All right, so much like any other what's your favorite question, it is essentially impossible to answer with a singular card.
Yeah.
So I have a few here that I'll get to. So I think if I had to select one card, it would be a very odd choice, but that card is Mahamoti Jin, which is a 6 mana 5/6 flyer. That's all it is. 6 mana 5/6 flyer. All right, so why Mahamoti Jin? So there's a video game called Magic Battlegrounds, which came out for at least the Xbox and maybe PC. This was, at this point, 15, 17 years ago, something like that. And so this was a sort of re-implementation of Magic as a consumable video game, but instead of a turn-based strategy game, it was like this kind of real-time strategy game where you're picking up mana crystals and summoning creatures, and the creatures just walk towards your opponent and hit them.
Wow.
If it gets into if another creature lines up with it, they start battling and it'll tick. So it'll be like every second each of them will deal their power to each other's toughness.
I gotcha.
So absolutely phenomenal game. If anybody ever gets the chance to play it, highly recommend trying it out. It's really fun. And so I really fell in love with Mahamoti Jin because it was the biggest blue creature in the game. So it was a 5/6 flyer.
Yeah.
And which means that it flew over all of the ground creatures that were running at you, and it would just fly over and basically just tap your opponent in the head and deal 5 damage. And then it would resummon itself back on the other side. And it was one of the biggest flyers in the game. And then the kicker to that is that when the characters would summon it, they would get so there was a sound effect, and they would get so enthralled. So they would go Mahamoti Jin. It just felt so magnanimous. So that has left its memory for me. So
I mean, I have never heard of this game, but I'm gonna play this thing. I'm gonna find this thing. I recently got a Steam Deck, and this sounds like the perfect thing to try to put on it.
Yeah, it's very fun. It has a lot of classic characters. Another of which is Arcanus, the Omnipotent. I love that guy. He's one of the characters you can select to play as.
I played the it was like the Duels of the Planeswalkers. I think it was a PS3 or PS2 game, but you would go buy it and they'd give you a promo card. I got a Scavenging Ooze and a Liliana. Oh, man, I wish they did stuff like that still. Very cool.
Yeah.
I was just saying, that was reprinted somewhat recently, wasn't it? Like in the last couple of years and something.
Yeah, I think it's been in a master set once or twice, core set, something like that.
I recognize that card.
Yeah. Not a particularly powerful card. I mean, it's got good stats for limited, but perhaps a bit outclassed in modern limited. So.
Hey, it flies, it hits hard. It's it's blue, so you're drawing cards and doing some other stuff.
Yeah.
You're happy.
So yeah. So that's the one card. The other card that I would say would be Kamal, Fist of Kroza. And the reason for that, so for anyone that doesn't know, Kamal is, I believe, it's a 6 mana 3 or 4/3, 6 mana 3/3. I actually can't remember exactly what its stat line is, but he has the ability to turn your lands into 1/1s, and then you can pay 2 green to overrun, which is +3/+3. All your creatures gain trample. But really, the reason why I love Kamal so much was because when I started playing, I got into the book series, which was around the story of Kamal and how his life story of being a pit fighter in the Cabal City, eventually being corrupted by the Mirari, attacking his sister because he was of the influence of the Mirari, and fighting with Akroma, all of that stuff. So I just kind of fell in love with that story. And yeah, Kamal's one of my favorite characters.
You're the second guest I've had on that's taking a story back to the Magic books. And that's so cool, man. I wish they did stuff like that. I mean, I know they still release like the stories online, but it's not the same as like they would do full books with these characters that you could really learn about and kind of enjoy the scenery and chew in more of the world than I feel like we get these days.
Yeah, I do think it's a shame that the lore has not kind of kept up or been invested as much as it used to be. It's kind of a missed opportunity, I think, especially when things happen like in War of the Spark, where plot points are meant to be released in novels or whatever, and we find out that they happen because of the cards. And like Niv Mizzet died. Who even knew? Like,
Did he?
yeah.
Oh man,
Well,
I know.
yeah. So he died in the beginning of the story, before the actual set War of the Spark. He died right before the set.
I didn't know that.
And then he was resurrected.
Oh god, of course
because he created sort of like a mechanical vessel for himself. And that's the Firemind vessel.
Oh, see,
Yeah.
this guy, you like the Vorthos, you know what's going on.
Yeah. So I used to follow that pretty heavily.
Oh, and we're not going to talk about the War of the Spark book. That thing was controversial at the time, and it still is to this day.
That was definitely a miss, unfortunately.
Kyle, you've been in the league for a while now. You know, I like I said, I always see you around. You're a name that I know because one, I see you around giving great advice, and two, I play you. I know you're a great player, and you're always helping out the new players. You're in the league. You're a figurehead, right? You're a community adjunct like me. You don't know what it means, but we got the title.
That's
right. So what's one thing that you would change about this league of ours that we love so much?
I think one thing, this is sort of an overarching change, but I think there's been some commentary, especially about the week 6 problem, obviously.
Yeah, always the week 6 problem.
Always the week 6 problem. But I think one of the reasons that ends up being a problem is because there isn't as much of a tangible benefit to placing 9th or placing even 20th, you know. No. So there's some monetary value, but the payout is fairly flat. So I think a holistic change would be to potentially adopt something that's more like the PGA system. So for those who don't know, the Pro Golfers Association in Europe, in America and whatnot, where each tournament that these golfers play in, they depending on where they place, they receive a certain number of points that go towards their standings at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And based on those points, they can end up getting, you know, advantages towards the end of the season and those tournaments. So I think if there was some way to translate that to make it so that there was more incentive to kind of engage with the system through week 6, beyond just the top 8 players get to play in the mega draft, I think that might help a little bit. It's obviously a kind of long tail of problems of trying to figure out exactly what that means, like what are points, you know, all that stuff. Yeah. But I think, yeah, giving more incentive to players to continue playing through the league. And this goes hand in hand with what you mentioned with elimination, where some players get eliminated pretty early in the league, unfortunately. Yeah. And then they have to spend 3 or 4 weeks just kind of waiting and watching. So.
No, that's a great idea. And I know very little about golf, but I do know it's a marathon, right? It's not one race. It's a lot of matches. It's like baseball, which I also don't know a lot about. But you play a lot, you know, and it's more of an overtime thing. And yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that's very cool. Give people more to play for. And, you know, I wonder what the advantages would be. That's curious. Maybe you get to pick like a certain pack or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think anything that can also create more mega draft opportunities,
right?
Because I think mega drafts are a really unique feature of the league. They're really exciting, obviously hard to schedule.
Yeah,
certainly a downside. But I think it's a bit tricky and a bit unfortunate that not everybody gets to participate in them as often. So
yeah, it becomes such a special treat when you get to do one, if you even get to do one. That's the thing, right? It's like I've been lucky enough to do 2, but man, I've probably seen 10 go by that I haven't been a part of. And it's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've been a part of one. But they're fun. They are really fun, and they are really unique. And I can't say I've heard of anywhere else doing anything like it. So it's just another fun part of the special league of ours that we want more of, right? You always just want more Magic, more league, more mega drafts, more prize money, Chris, more promo packs. Come on, something.
That's right.
Well, Kyle, I'm curious about this because this one, again, it could be anything. It could be you opened a shiny card. It could be you beat LSV at your local shop. But what's your greatest Magic accomplishment? Well,
I think so. Winning the Ravnica side league in our league, I think was pretty cool. I had a sort of, it's actually somewhat similar to my current league deck, Simic deck, where it was more focused around controlling the mid game and kind of keeping the opponent off balance. And it was quite underpowered, I think, compared to some of the decks that kind of evolved towards the end of that league. So being able to take that one home was pretty cool. I think outside of league, I top 8'd a modern 1K
Oh, there
with
you go.
Living
What'd you
End.
play? Living
I played
End?
Living End.
That's sweet, man.
So that
That's
was cool.
awesome.
I got stomped in the top 8 by Tron though, because they
Oh.
played turn 1 Tron Land and Relic of Progenitus. So for those who don't know, Relic is quite good against Living End.
Yeah, that's gonna eat your graveyard right on up.
Yeah.
Right on up. I played Modern for a very short time. I played Grixis Control.
Nice.
And I had a couple of those relics in my sideboard for whatever the mechanic where you instead of drawing a card, you mill yourself.
Dredge.
Dredge, yeah. Mostly for Dredge. And man, boy, is that not a fun thing to play against. I tell you what. Modern's very different now. Do you still play Modern?
I haven't played in a while, mostly since getting into the league. The league has kind of taken over most of my Magic time.
Same.
I think, which I prefer. I much prefer limited to constructed. But I think Modern, it kind of got turned upside down with Modern Horizons 2. And so it's been kind of all over the place. But I think it's still a competitive format and it's still an interesting format.
It's the one I look at, and it's like, if I would play constructed, that would probably be the one I would do. Just because, I don't know, standard's a little too not powerful enough. Legacy's like, who has the money? And like Modern's like, it's right in there. It's right in that sweet spot.
Well, the problem with Legacy too is there's sort of a soft cap on the number of people that can ever play it because of the reserve list. So
hey, just buy those new cards that came out. You can build a deck.
Those $1,000 proxies, yeah.
Hey, they sold out, ladies and gentlemen. Who can believe it?
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you do for the league, and I appreciate you making time for this. I know it takes time out of your day, and again, I really love talking Magic, and you're someone I've really wanted to talk to about it. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you, John. I really appreciate everything you do for the league, especially this podcast, of course. And it was great talking to you as well.
Oh, thank you, and good luck out there. You're in second place. Keep it up. Take this thing home and get that mega draft that we all want to be in so badly.
I'll certainly try. Thanks, John.
No problem. Back to the show. Again, Kyle, so nice. Great guy. Got to see him on camera. I do the face. People have been doing the video. I didn't start doing the video on in like the first couple months of this thing. But I've been pushing it a little more, and more people are open to it, and more people are doing it. And man, it's a treat. I tell you, I know what at least 10 people in the league look like now. And people who I've been playing with for like 2 years. I finally be like, oh, that's you. That's you, man. And I get to see you, and I get to connect with you just a little bit more because of this podcast. And it's really nice. It's really cool. Next coming up, we got week 3 on the horizon. People will start to be eliminated in week 3. Not a lot, just a trickle, just the worst of the worst. People who maybe just have a terrible, terrible pool, people who are just having the worst league of their lives, or people that are inactive and maybe entropy out. And then we're going to start getting into the heavy hitting weeks 4 and 5, where a lot of people will be eliminated, and I'm going to have to come up with a drop for those people. So that's coming. That's something I got to do in my spare time. But I'm excited for week 3. I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. I just want to try to continue, how well I'm doing. Like Emmett said, if I can go 3-2 every week, I'm doing pretty good. And that's really all you can hope for and ask for. A winning record. And you should expect to take a loss or 2 a week. You're not going to win them all. And like I said earlier, 20% of games, you're just going to lose. You can't help it. You're going to mulligan your life away. You're going to draw 6 lands off the top. Your opponent's going to have a great curve. It's just the game that we play. Well, until I see you all next week, and until I get to play all my games and let you know how well I did, I hope that you get to keep a good 7, and I hope the shuffler is in your favor, because I tell you, that thing is broken. Until then, I'll see everybody next week. Bye, everybody.